The recent war between India and Pakistan highlighted once again the conflict in Kashmir. And for anyone who's been following the Kashmir news recently, particularly within the Pakistan side of the erstwhile state, you will have noticed seismic protests taking place, particularly around the capital, Muzaffarabad. The protests were organised by the Jammu Kashmir Joint Awami Action Committee, which is a grassroots movement. It's non-partisan. It means it has no links to the government of Azad Kashmir or any political parties. It has committees across the entirety of the districts of Azad Kashmir, which makes it one of the most important and significant social movements in the history of the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. And we certainly haven't seen that kind of organisation in Azad Kashmir since the Jammu Kashmir Muslim Conference. Its members are primarily local residents, lawyers, trade unions, retailers, and they have now held protests for 3 years. In May 2023, we then saw protests again last year, and this is the 3rd year in a row in May that we're seeing the protests. And to talk about this, joining us from Azad Kashmir, so he has been present this entire time, is Shams Rehman, who is a writer, broadcaster and journalist. He's perhaps most well known for being one of the founders of the media platform Jammu Kashmir Television, commonly known as JKTV, but he's also the author of a book published in 2013, Azad Kashmir and British Kashmiris, and his recent book, which was published in 2025 in Urdu, titled Azad Kashmir at the Crossroads. And I'm Dr. Sarina Hussain. I'm an Associate Professor of Sociology at the Centre for Peace and Security in Coventry. I'm also an adjunct professor in politics and international relations at Quaid-e-Azam University and a non-resident scholar at the Institute for Regional Studies in Islamabad. And I'm also the author of the book Society and Politics of Jammu and Kashmir, which is published by Palgrave Macmillan. Shams, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Karina.
Can you just give us a bit of an update on how things are? And then perhaps we can sort of go back in history a little bit about how and why this started. As I said, this has been going on for sort of some 3 years now. And I think it surprised us all, just in terms of the sheer size, the support, the level of organisation, and the fact that it's continued. So it wasn't just something that happened in 2023. We're seeing this momentum being continued across, and even against the backdrop of course, the recent war, we're still seeing the protests as planned.
Yes, well, this recent event, which was organized in Muzaffarabad, the capital of this Pakistani administered side of Jammu Kashmir, was to remember, to commemorate the killing of 3 Kashmiris who were killed on 13th of May 2024. Last year, if you can recall, there was a long march, where people participated from all parts of Azad Kashmir. And the long march was in support of the 3 main demands by Awami Action Committee. The electricity to be provided on production cost, the subsidies on flour and flour, and the third was reduction or cut in the privileges and perks of the ruling class, as the people here call it. So it was to put pressure on Azad Kashmiri government, who many times said they will look into these demands, and they were very, initially they were very antagonistic to the demands, but then gradually they almost accepted it, but then they couldn't do anything in practice. So this march was to basically put pressure on government. But eventually the government was advised by the Pakistani government, and the committee leaders had negotiations with the Pakistani different representatives of different Pakistani institutions on the way to Muzaffarabad. So all the demands were met, and by then people, when reached to Muzaffarabad, all the march was called off. But because there were rangers stationed in Muzaffarabad, came from Pakistan, so they had clashes with the protesters, some of the protesters, and they shot fire and 3 people were killed. So this was basically to remember those 3 people who were killed in Muzaffarabad, and they are known as the martyrs of people's rights movement in Azad Kashmir. And now this was supposed to be held on 13th of May, exactly on the same day. But because of war between India and Pakistan, so Action Committee actually postponed it, and they said when we will do it after the war. And once the ceasefire was announced and held, they then organized this event, and they call it, to remember those people rights movement martyrs, as well as people who were killed during the war on the both sides of the control line or ceasefire line. So this event was for that, and again against the expectations of many experts on Azad Kashmir, the turnout was far too big than people expected or estimated or speculated. So, there was general perception in many quarters that why people will go now, because they got cheap flour on cheap rates, and they have now they are using electricity on production costs, and now these were the main thing, and why people will go now. But obviously that was not the case. I think Action Committee is more than just about these 2 demands. It has grown into, like you said, it has grown into a social movement, and it is linked with the people to the very bottom of the society.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that in a minute, but just to kind of reiterate, because as you know, I was there last year when the protest happened. It was the first time that I had returned to Azad Kashmir since before the pandemic, and before the earthquake. So when I was last in Pakistan before the pandemic, I couldn't get to Azad Kashmir because there'd been an earthquake and some of the roads had been damaged, and then of course the pandemic happened, and then I had this packed schedule because the book had just come out and I was giving guest lectures across Pakistan at various universities, and I had one weekend to visit Azad Kashmir, and it was that weekend. And I recall you messaging me and saying that some supporters of the Joint Awami Action Committee had actually been rounded up and imprisoned, and I suppose that was an attempt to dampen the protest and perhaps as a deterrent. And yet, the day that I was travelling in from Islamabad, some of the roads were closed in Azad Kashmir. Of course, I made it to Azad Kashmir. We met in person in Akalgarh, otherwise known as Islamgarh. And then the very next day, the protests happened, and we heard about the first fatality. So it was a police officer who unfortunately had lost his life in Islamgarh. And then, as you said, the movement was successful in terms of how we would measure a social movement, because the demands were met very, very quickly. So the demands of the Joint Awami Action Committee were met by the government of Pakistan. Yet, unfortunately, as you said again, rangers were deployed from Pakistan into Azad Kashmir, and some of the protesters were shot and killed. sadly. So this was, just to clarify, so the protest that occurred this year was to commemorate the deaths of the martyrs who had taken part in this
Yes. And just to add on about what happened in Akaldar last year when the police officer Adnan Qureshi was killed. There is a commemoration tomorrow in Mirpur about Adnan Qureshi and all other martyrs, and the members of Central Action Committee are coming to Mirpur. So tomorrow the event is being held in Mirpur Stadium, and one of the demands of Mirpur Action Committee is for government to form a judicial commission and look into the killing of police officer, because initially the Action Committee activists of Mirpur were arrested, and they were kind of filed FIR against them, for murdering Adnan Qureshi. But then obviously they were released because they were in police custody when it happened. So there was too much pressure from people, and everybody was saying that what is this? And then, so they had to release these Action Committee members. But since then, the Action Committee is constantly demanding that there should be a judicial inquiry how the police officer was killed, because none of the Action Committee had any weapons, and they always been very, very peaceful. And only after that incident, there were some more incidents last year when the police tried to stop them, and there was response from people as well. But there were no other more fatal casualties, but there were some injuries. So people are demanding that this all should be properly investigated, that why this happened, who did it, and all that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know it's speculation, but what are the chances, in your opinion, that it will be investigated? Because I suppose if it is properly investigated, there's the potential, of course, that the authorities may have to take responsibility for the death of one of their own police officers.
Yeah, that's why people are saying that is the reason there is no judicial commission so far. And people are also demanding that who invited rangers in Muzaffarabad, because after the last year march, the government refused to take responsibility that they invited the rangers. So there is also a demand for investigation for that as well. But nothing happened so far, and people are not really expecting that something will happen.
So, as I said at the beginning of this is perhaps the most significant organization that we've seen in Azad Kashmir since its inception. I mean, perhaps I think the only other one that we could point to in terms of its membership, or in terms of people supporting it, was the Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, which of course at that point, post division of the erstwhile state, had support on both the Pakistani side, which we call Azad Kashmir, and the Indian administered side as well. It had quite seismic support if we think about the fact that, it was very much bringing together both sides for a very, very common agenda. But in terms of Azad Kashmir, if we think about the political movement at the time of the division of the state, as I said, it was the All Jammu Kashmir Muslim Conference, primarily, who was sort of based within what is today Azad Kashmir. But since then, there hasn't been that kind of mobilizing force. And I know you and I had conversations about this. It almost seemed as though for several decades, Azad Kashmir was very quiet, certainly politically it appeared so, compared to the Indian administered side. We know that the majority of sort of political activity was coming out of the Kashmir Valley. And there's been this huge shift, I think, unpredicted, certainly unexpected, as you said. I think the other thing that is so telling is the fact that it gained support across the entirety of Azad Kashmir. So they've had so much buy-in at a grassroots level. Is this the consequence of years and years of frustration? Why now? I mean, I'm kind of guessing. I have my own theories, obviously post 2019, but also years of frustration regarding resources and the exploitation of resources, of our resources, that many of us had to essentially become displaced for. If we talk about the hydropower projects, and then the fact that people in Azad Kashmir were now being expected to pay these extortionate prices for their own electricity, you know, that they were generating from their own water and their own resources. But what was the turning point for this level of national mobilization? Essentially, it isn't a national mobilization if we take Azad Kashmir, you know, as a unit.
Yeah, I mean, this particular movement was started on, I think, was it 13th May 2023, around that time. Maybe, you know, it was maybe a month before or after, but some around that time. The reason was I met this guy who started it. I met this guy this time in Rawalakot. His name is Sardar Kadir. And I asked him that, you know, what happened and why you started it. And he said that, you know, initially the reason was that the prices for flour and other utilities were increased, but because the flour is subsidized in Azad Kashmir, and there are certain agents who then are supplied, and then they sell it to the shopkeepers. So they were selling the flour which they bought before the price rise at the new prices. And these guys, that some of the traders, they said, you know, this is not fair. And they said, well, that is how it's going to be. So these guys, Kadir and another Sardar Umar Nazir, who is also a trader, they went and they asked them that why you are doing this. And they say, well, you know, that's a norm. When the prices go up, everything, you know, we sell at the new prices. And they say, but that's not fair. You bought on the. So this was the initial dispute. When the traders did not agree with them and they refused to sell the you know, flour, then these few of us, about 6 or 7 of these guys, they started sitting outside of the this Atta Dipu, as it's called. So it started from there, and then more people joined them, and then to the next town and the next town, and you know, of Poonch district, then the Poonch division, and then Mirpur division joined in, and then the demands increased. The second demand was that electricity. Initially, they demanded the electricity should be provided free of cost to Azad Kashmiris because it is produced in Azad Kashmir, and they have charged us such high rates for so many years. So now we deserve free. And the third was, you know, the reduction in rulers' privileges. So with these 3 demands, they started sit-ins in different towns of Mirpur and Poonch division. So I don't know if you remember, I came back in August 23, was it? Yeah. And there was a meeting in Kotli, first consultation meeting of Awami Action Committee. At that time, it was called Awami Action Committee. So these guys from Mirpur were going and they asked me, I had few meetings with them and I was trying to understand what is going on in Mirpur and in Azad Kashmir. So they asked me if I want to come. So I thought, yeah, I will go. So we went in that meeting, and in that meeting, these were the three main demands. But that was the meeting where it was decided that from now on, we will encourage people not to pay their bills, electricity bills. So people then started boycott of electricity bills. And that then went kind of big. Within weeks, people not only in Mirpur and Poonch division, but also Muzaffarabad division stopped paying bills. And then more action committees were formed everywhere, and they had their what they called the grand consultation in Muzaffarabad in September 23, I think it was. So in that meeting, it was represented by about more than 300 people from all small, even smaller towns of Azad Kashmir. So it was very much kind of from every district. There were so many people there. So after I think about 23, 24 hours consultations, it was decided that the committee will be formed into Joint Awami Action Committee. Mm. And the demands were, more demands were added into the three. And I think initially there were 10, including Azad Kashmir's own grid stations. And, there were some other demands that, to complete the big uncompleted projects and things like that. So after that, it became a like a Azad Kashmir wide appeared at that time a movement which is about these main issues of Azad Kashmiri people. But since then, it kind of evolved into something which ordinary people started associating with. That government does not represent us. Government does not, kind of provide services to us. Government is nowhere, but it is only Awami Action Committee who are fighting for our rights. And they started seeing it as an alternative. And the reason why, if we go before May 23, I think in Azad Kashmir, the initial what people call a resistance politics was started in 1950s, and till 1965, this it was started in Mirpur, and because Mangla Dam was going to be built in Mirpur. So by 1965, it was grown into quite a significant movement, but mainly in Mirpur. And in Mirpur, there was this one of the initial leaders of this movement was Sufi Zaman, and he was known for his focus on people's daily lives and their rights. So when the government officers denied somebody their legitimate right or any facilities, he used to go in single-handedly with a stick in his hand and say, why you are doing this? This is supposed to be Azad Kashmir. This is supposed to be free Kashmir. Why people are suffering here? This is poor people. This is poor person. And you are, asking for bribes and things like that. He used to do it himself. He was also part of anti-Mangla Dam movement. So this then when it was grown, then this was kind of um, convinced by activists, Kashmiri activists in Pakistan and in Azad Kashmir who were focusing on the liberation of Kashmir. So they came to Mirpur. So they came to Mirpur and they had meeting, and then they formed Plebiscite Front. If you remember 1965, they formed Plebiscite. Since then, the focus of the resistance was shifted from people's daily lives or the government in Muzaffarabad. It was shifted to the to liberate Indian occupied Kashmir from Indian occupation.
So let me get this right. Sorry, Shams, to interrupt. Just to get this clear. So the Plebiscite Front started in Azad Kashmir, but then it shifted its focus as essentially a advocacy body to liberate the Indian administered. Okay.
Yeah, to demand plebiscite, the kind of focus was on other side, and the focus was on the Kashmir issue, I should say. And from the people's rights to Kashmir issue became their major focus, and then gradually it was shifted the activism to in the Kashmir Valley. So this is how the resistance movement kind of was grown in Azad Kashmir, and then although it was initiated in Mirpur, but then all districts, people from all districts joined it, supported it, and played leading role in JKLF in many ways. But again, JKLF was never a people's movement kind of reflecting their daily life issues, their ordinary lives. It was to mobilize people against the occupation. But Action Committee, I think there, because of that, a gap happened in Azad Kashmir about the daily issues, because the government, the way Azad Kashmiri government was evolved, they very soon, initially adopted the approach to tell people that now you are free, but you are free to become good Muslims and practice Islam and be simple. And this life is not about luxuries and developments and all that. This is about being a good Muslim, and our main aim is to liberate the Indian Kashmir. This was the initial narrative. But when people saw that those people who were giving these sermons, their kind of lifestyle is changing, their wealth is changing, and their own kids are going into big universities, and they are kind of setting up businesses. But to ordinary people, they are saying, stay simple. Don't think about your daily need. Think about your bigger duty, and that is to liberate the Kashmir from Indian occupation. Our Kashmiri Muslim brothers are under the occupation of Hindus, non-Muslims. So this kind of narrative was coming from the government of Azad Kashmir. So ordinary people's daily lives were neglected very badly. So this and gradually people within the resistance movement. Sardar Qadir was also a very leading activist of Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front who started this. And then other parties like National Student Federation, and there are so many other small progressive groups and trade organizations, and like you said, then they all started joining hands and looking here in Azad Kashmir and focusing on the source of problem. They saw the source of problem is the government in Muzaffarabad. So this is for the first time that people actually focused on what is happening in the government corridors of Muzaffarabad. So that is why when people kind of started making demands, the government of Muzaffarabad was very uncomfortable. And when they saw after 13th, before 13th of May last year, they were not really taking them seriously, and they were accusing them of carrying forward the Indian agenda, and they are funded by Indians and this and that. But after 13th of May, when they saw that so many people have come out, despite so many barriers and despite such a fear they spread last year, then I think they started thinking, also, they're still not really serious about doing any reforms to improve the governance here. They're still thinking of the ways to crush the movement, to divide them, to malign them, and all that. Their focus is still, the strategy is still do that. But I think after this 25th of May 2025 commemoration event, I think there is more pressure on government, and but because this is not going to end there, there is a deadline announced on this on 25th of May. That deadline they given to Azad Kashmir government for acting upon the demands they already accepted is ending on 8th of June. So by 8th of June, the government of Azad Kashmir has time to meet all the demands, well, 10 man demands, which government has formally accepted, and they were to issue notifications and practically do whatever is required to implement those demands. They have not done that, and they are using delaying tactics and this and that. But the action committee announced that 8th of June is the last date. After that, we will sit down and find what is the best way forward since then. And they said they are not going to go away, and they are going to make the Azad Kashmir government accountable. So this is and I think the horizon of Jammu Kashmir Action Committee is also expanding. Because for the first time, they demanded self-determination for all the regions, and I think that's because of the war, and particularly after the war, when the world is again started talking about Kashmir. So they have given their position.
Wow, there's so much there. I was trying to make some notes. So I guess just a couple of clarifying points. So even though the demands were met last year in terms of the electricity prices, the flour subsidies to continue, etc., you're saying that they haven't all been implemented yet. So it's been a year, even though the demands were accepted, the implementation still hasn't happened, and the Joint Awami Action Committee have provided a deadline of the 8th of June for those demands to be met. Is that right?
The demands for electricity and production cost were implemented. People are now using electricity at electricity cost, and the flour subsidies. But the other 10 demands are not. Although government agreed after a negotiation with Action Committee representatives, government agreed, but they have not implemented those demands, and that is what basically Action Committee is pushing for, including the demand for reduction of privileges and perks. So that is where it is at the moment.
Yeah. So as you were speaking, what it sounded like is that we've kind of had two movements or two focuses for the movement. So we've had, the macro, if we want, that state level demands for sovereignty, demands for a plebiscite, And that in some ways neglected the micro, which was the lived reality of the people in Azad Kashmir, essentially, who were being told that their priority had to be the macro, because that was the only way that they would be able to contribute to the sovereignty of the people on the Indian administered side of Jammu and Kashmir. But years of focusing on that macro level actually meant that the people in Azad Kashmir had been, essentially, they hadn't been given their rights in relation to the constitution of Pakistan. But the second thing, and I think this is something that we haven't really heard very much about until recently, is their relationship with the government of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. And it sounds to me like that is now the focus of the Joint Awami Action Committee, to address the fact that we have this governance structure in place, but that actually it hasn't provided what the residents have needed from a government, from a state level government. When I say state level, of course, I mean the state of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, not necessarily this Pakistan and the government sitting in Islamabad. So if that's the case, can you just talk us through what it is in particular that the Joint Awami Action Committee are now asking in terms of changes to that governance structure, and are asking or highlighting perhaps in terms of issues related specifically to the government of Azad Kashmir?
Well, they are basically asking from completion of projects to, issues like uncompleted projects, to the ownership of resources of Azad Kashmir, and empowering this Azad Kashmir government with to govern internally with very little interference from Pakistan. So that is the kind of scale of the demands, and specifically they are asking for resources, and because now after electricity is provided at lower cost, its use has increased, and Azad Kashmir infrastructure of Azad Kashmir is kind of made to handle 350 megawatt of electricity, but now obviously its use has increased. So now the demand is the infrastructure should be increased as well, and which is not really in good state anyway, because it was, it's not really properly upgraded. People are saying. So and then the way government offices are run, the way people are treated in these offices, and the way this culture of safarish, like people are appointed not on merit, but because they know somebody in the government inside here in Azad Kashmir and maybe in Pakistan. So these kind of things, and also this recently they have also added a demand of ending the seats for Kashmiri refugees in Pakistan in AJK Assembly. They have 12 seats, so that there is officially demand is included in the charter of Action Committee that these seats should be they shouldn't have any seats in Azad Kashmir Assembly, because they are settled now. Their third, fourth generation is there. They have every right as Pakistani citizens, and the special quota for them is also demanded to be demolished, and they are also demanding now free education, free health, and development of airport in Mirpur, well, they say airport, international airport. They didn't say in Mirpur. And demands like that are also now part of this. So it's from governance to privileges to prices and to infrastructure. So all kind of things are now becoming demands, and the main thing is that all these demands are supported by people. One thing Action Committee is doing, the way they are doing differently. They are not making decisions for people. They take up issues which people want them to take. To announce that we will do this, and then they go to people that come and support us. No, it is the other way around. People ask them that we want this.
So it really is being informed by grassroots, essentially, is what you're kind of stressing, that this is a grassroots.
This is very much, and you can clearly see the class character of this movement as well. And it is very much, obviously, it's shaking the status quo. And the status quo, like I said, made a class in Azad Kashmir of 4 or 5 families, whose 3rd, 4th generation is now ruling Azad Kashmir, and the people who are connected with them. And then there are people of, officer class from Pakistan, directly appointed from Pakistan. And this is the class which is basically enjoying all the privileges in Azad Kashmir, while ordinary people don't have basic needs. So this is becoming like more than just pressure on government now. The whole class is kind of feeling the heat that ordinary people are demanding things which will certainly affect their own wealth and sources of wealth and lifestyle.
Shams, how likely do you think it is that these demands will be met?
I think that the way things are, I don't think Azad Kashmir government have any choice not to meet them. If they don't, then the movement will not go away; it will grow. And the only hope I think people at the top may have is that when the election comes, Action Committee does not. If Action Committee are the members supported by Action, because elections are next year. So if Action Committee does not participate in it, or the member supported by Action Committee independently don't participate in it, then these people will be elected again, and then maybe the ordinary people will say, what is the point of now going on to streets, because our people voted them in again. So that is something I am sure the people within the Action Committee leadership, there are about 30 people, 3 from all districts. I'm sure they, and with their local representatives, they must be thinking about discussing it, what to do. And if they, sorry.
No, that's
and
fine.
If they come, if they feel their candidate or candidates, because they can't feel there, because they're not political party, they don't have resources. So it has to be people, if they are interested and they become candidates for the assembly seat, then I think there will be further shift in the Azad Kashmiri politics as a whole. Because I have seen in my constituency, which is LA2 from Khalkabad, which is in the outskirts of Mirpur, just from where Jericho Road starts,
Mhm.
to Plak, where the Dadiar starts. Particularly the area I live in, Akalgar. Action committee is the most weakest here, and people are really not much into any kind of confrontational politics. Even here, people are talking that if there is action committee candidate, we will vote for him or her. Well, most likely is him. So that even here, but in other some of the constituencies, I think the support is far greater, and the candidates, the sitting candidates, will have to do a lot more to keep their seat. Yeah.
Shams, I mean, I had a thought because part of it is, whether there's a will on the part of the government of Azad Kashmir to meet these demands, because they're quite big demands. I mean, if we're thinking about free education, free healthcare, just financially, the commitment to implement those is large, isn't it? Financially, it's large. And if we think about the economic position of Pakistan in general at the moment, it's obviously not the best. How much would that impact whether free education and free healthcare are actually realistic demands? So even if, say, the government of Azad Jammu and Kashmir decided that it did want to do this, is it even able to? Does it have the resources to provide this?
Yeah. Yeah, the action committee people are saying two things about this. One is that there is already government schools across
Yeah.
Azad Kashmir, but there is so much corruption, so much political appointments, that they virtually very little education is delivered in those schools. So people are forced to go into private schools. Even people who can hardly afford it, they send their children there instead of government schools. So one is that free education infrastructure is already there. Use it. And the second is that they say the privileges which the ruling class enjoying, they have to those have to be withdrawn, and those resources should be used for development of ordinary people and provide them health and education facilities. It's not why it's confined only to the upper strata. Why the ordinary people can't have free education when there is enough resources? The government is abusing those resources. That is why it looks difficult. So it's not big population. Azad Kashmir is not big population. And they say the resources, the total, electricity generation and, foreign exchange and other kind of sources of income in Azad Kashmir, if they are used properly, people, can get free health, can get free education, and then they can be more kind of, they can make more contribution to production of things as well. But at the moment, life is very hard for ordinary people.
Yeah, Shams, thank you for saying that, because I know this is obviously going to be one of the kind of the main questions or the main comebacks, of course, to say, well, we can't implement it because it's just too expensive. And nationally, there aren't any other states that provide, or provinces, I should say. Of course, Azad Kashmir isn't a province, but
it's like austerity. It's like austerity argument in Britain.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's why I raised it, because it is like the austerity argument here in the UK. But of course we know, and I think, well, of course we know that the geographical landmass that is the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir is incredibly resource rich. So we know that it generates the income. Of course, the people living there, the residents, the rightful owners of that land, the sovereign owners of that land, they, of course, are not in charge of the resources and the income that it generates. But yeah, so I kind of just wanted to stress that point and highlight the fact that if we know that there is the financial means to be able to provide free healthcare, free education, and potentially develop an international airport, then there's already the sort of the counter response, I guess, to what I would imagine, you know, the Joint Awami Action Committee will be potentially met with on the 8th of June. You know, the other thing I have to say, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think Azad Kashmir has the highest literacy rate in the country after the Islamabad Capital Territory. I also know that we have an overqualification of medics and doctors in Azad Kashmir. I know that from my visits there. We produce so many medical doctors that there aren't enough jobs for them. So yeah, I mean, again, I know that's a key frustration for people on the ground, because many of them often have to travel to Islamabad to have treatments, even though we have the qualified, you know, professionals within Azad Kashmir, but unfortunately not the facilities. I've got two more questions, I think. So the first one is that you mentioned earlier, and I also noted within the kind of the discourse that was being produced by the Joint Awami Action Committee, at some point it added a JK in front of it and it became the Jammu Kashmir Joint Awami Action Committee. And you just mentioned there that they have also now began to speak about the issue of sovereignty and the plebiscite, which of course wasn't their initial mandate, if you like. That wasn't sort of initially what they were focusing on. So we've gone again. It's really interesting with Jammu and Kashmir that we've kind of gone again from the micro that you described to the macro, although this time it feels more holistic in that, of course, the focus is still primarily on the micro and on sort of the daily needs of the residents of Azad Kashmir. Of course, we know that the leadership on the Indian administered side now are significantly limited. They were put in prison in 2019. They're significantly limited. Mobilization is, you know, significantly dampened since 2019 on the Indian administered side of Jammu and Kashmir. How important do you think the role of the JAAC is now in being able to speak for people on the other side, given that we know that they are significantly silenced? Do you think it has potential to turn into a movement to represent the entirety of the erstwhile state?
Well, I think this their position on plebiscite and self-determination. I think the need for this was risen after the war, and when the Pakistani spokesperson of army said that Kashmir is an external issue and people have to decide, people will decide. And then Donald Trump, the president, said that you know, Kashmir issue has to be resolved and things like that. So then I think the action committee was asked from within by the people and their supporters and members. What is the position of action committee on this? Because the action committee has people in it which support independent Kashmir, maybe large number of that, and those who support status quo in terms of Kashmir, they like leave it as it is, and those who want to join Pakistan. So all these three, I can say, ideological colors about future of state are there. So they had to come up with something, to clear their position on this. And I think they nicely put it that it is up to people. If they want to, remain independent, fine. If they want to go for accession, that's their choice. but the right to vote must be given to people according to the United Nations Charter. That is the word they used. So they're asking for that, and not as per UN resolutions, which you know that generally when interpreted there are only two options: go join India
Bilateral.
or Pakistan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they, that is why they said it should be according to United Nations Charter, which obviously gives unlimited right to self-determination. So that is what they are saying, and obviously they are always concerned about what is happening on the other side, and the repression and the way people are silenced and choked there. And but this was not like their they didn't see this as their remit, or who to demand. They are so here too. They say this is obviously India and Pakistan go to war every now and then on Kashmir issue, and it is about time that they should resolve it and let people live their lives and develop their lives. At the moment, the lives of Kashmiris, particularly, are not kind of they are static. The you know they every now and then there is so much violence, so much destruction that they have to rebuild it again, in addition to natural disasters. So that is why I think they are quite clear about this, that if there is a situation where people have to decide, then it's up to them, and Action Committee has no uh, position as Action Committee other than there should be self-determination.
Yeah, so essentially their position is that the plebiscite didn't happen and it needs to happen. Yeah. I think my last question to you, Shams, is, of course, we know we have a huge diaspora from Azad Kashmir, primarily here in the UK, but elsewhere. How do you think there's a role for the diaspora in this movement, firstly? And if there is, how do you think the diaspora can help support the movement? Or do you think there's even a will to help support the movement?
Yeah. So far, diaspora played a very active role in this movement in many ways. Since it was started, the initially the people who are called activists amongst Kashmiri diaspora in Britain, they were at the forefront to kind of echo the demands of Action Committee, that yes, these are fair demands, must be met. We are here to support Action Committee's demands, despite their own internal kind of differences with Action Committee. Why Action Committee is not demanding independent Kashmir. So, despite that, they supported this. But when it was grown into something big, and because of the YouTube and other social media outlets, I have seen for the first time in my life that ordinary men and women were talking about this movement, and because they were watching on different phones, or some kids have connected their moms and dads or granddads mom's TV with YouTube, so they can watch on TV. They say it is on TV now. The grandmother say it's on TV. So they say it's on TV now that this is what's happening in Azad Kashmir, and because there are quite few senior or central leaders of this movement who always speak in Pahari. So people and that generation, they understand that what they are saying. So obviously So in Britain also it's gone beyond the traditional circles of Kashmiri activism. It's gone into the households in different ways. And as far as young people are concerned, I don't know if they are also aware, but they are aware that what is going on here, that there is something going on there back home, between, about the electricity bills, but their main concern is that there should be electricity, because whenever they come here, there is load shedding. So they say it's too hot when it's load shedding. So for them, it is also it has a connection, but I'm not sure if they are kind of showing any support for action committee, but they certainly are aware of the issues. So because the action committee is fighting for the issues which are linked with people who visit from there, so it is kind of not a thing. So that is, and when the people were arrested here, there were protests in outside of Pakistani embassy and Pakistani consulates in Birmingham, Bradford, Manchester. So people are supporting this campaign. In future, I think that there were a few people visiting here in last 3-4 months. 2 months I'm here, and I met so many people who were visiting from there, and they were going back with the kind of commitment or this this understanding that whatever way we can support, we will support. And for the first time, Action Committee actually has issued a video where people are donating money. The traders from Muzaffarabad and the Muzaffarabadi diaspora in England, they collected money and sent for this particular event to be organized. So, and they made videos and shown people that, look, we because we have been accused of where we getting money from. So this is, we are making it transparent that this is where we are getting money from, and that money, part of it came from British diaspora, Kashmiri diaspora. So yeah, and people in other towns where they are mainly from Mirpur, they are supporting it in different ways. And I think the way they can support, this is what when somebody asked this from one of the leaders of Action Committee, and at that time he said, we don't need any money, but we certainly do political and diplomatic support. If there is any sort of suppression here from any institutions, then we will need support from our diaspora community to tell the world that this is what is happening. We are not violent people. We have organized massive, the biggest protest in Azad Kashmir history without breaking a simple vase, as they call it. Gumla ni tuta. So, they say we are a peaceful movement, but obviously the authorities trying to crush the movement using different tactics, and we need support from our diaspora people that, yeah.
Yeah. And just in terms, Shams, I mean, I just thought of another question as you were saying that, because of course it is a non-violent movement. This time we had, of course, fatalities. It was really sad that, people were lost last year. But this year, do you feel that there's been a different approach by the authorities, less heavy-handed, more cooperative? I mean, what does it feel like this time?
Yeah, that is certainly I think I forgot to mention this earlier. Thank you for asking this. That this credit goes to Azad Kashmir government that this time they did not try any of those previous tactics. There was no police to stop people. And even in the on the venue, around the venue, there was not really any police. People were policing themselves, and they thanked police that obviously they remain peaceful and we remain peaceful. If the government does not crush us, we are not here to cause any violence. We have simple demands, and these demands are from the people, not from us.
Mm.
These demands are from people. So you can't crush us and then expect that people will go away. More people will come. So therefore, the best way is to sit down and sort things. If there are demands you cannot meet, sit down and explain that this is what we can, this is what we can't do. But in terms of policing, this time there was no intervention from police, and and consequently there was no violence. Everything went very smooth, peaceful. There were about, I think, roughly people are saying there were about 25,000 people, between 15 to 25, some say 30. Police said about 4,000. But whatever the correct figure, the whole venue was packed. And from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Wow.
People were there, and no kind of any unpleasant incident happened. So this time certainly government's approach was different, and I think it worked well.
Yeah, thanks, Shams. I guess the next big sort of date to watch out for is that 8th of June deadline, and to see what the response is. So yeah, perhaps we can connect again then and see.
We hope.
Yeah, and see
We
what.
hope the government will sit with the committee before that and sort things out without taking it to any confrontational direction.
Yeah. Shams, any more last words, thoughts to conclude?
Well, yeah, one aspect I think which is very important about this movement is that it is, I can see the way it is affecting the traditional what you can say foundations of Azad Kashmiri society. The brotherlyism, the regionalism, that this is from Punch, he is from Muzaffarabad, and also the grip of officials, the bureaucracy and the officers. And every time I came here, and I don't know how, if you ever had a kind of need to go to any offices.
Thankfully
Even
not.
like, it's like, you are in the colonial era. I mean, I obviously I was not there when there was colonialism, but what we read in books and watch in films, you feel like that when you are there. I mean, if you have somebody, then you will be, really respected, offered tea, and very nice. But people who don't have, the ordinary people, the way they've been treated and the way officers behave, like, there's nobody who can ask them. They are no answerable to no one, apart from those who place them there. So for ordinary people, the way is totally changing. And the grip of brotherlyism and this widespread regionalism, there are still, it's not gone, but it's really is a big hit. They have kind of hit it the big way. And it's the people in Azad Kashmir, when I came in 22, it was kind of dismay, pessimism, depression, that nothing can be done. Everything is wrong, but nothing can be done to put it right. And all that is changed. Ordinary people now are so optimistic that yes, things can change. So there's a hope. And but at the same time, there is this concern as well that government is not going to give in. They are very stubborn. They think this is this is kind of a challenge for their writ, as they call it. But the writ is not to provide people, make their lives easy, provide them opportunities. Here it is to keep them quiet and keep them kind of in the state of mind where they have to be thankful to government every day that they are living. That is changing.
Mm, mm. Thanks, Shams. I think that's probably a good place to stop.